Good afternoon, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. This is Rich again, back for your second video blog of the day for Monday, October 20th, 2014, around 5:40 p.m. It's a nice and sunny day out. Highs in mid-50s. It's going to be the nicest, sunniest day for the next 4 or 5 days, because beginning tomorrow we're going to have damp and dreary conditions, raining at times, other times just raw and ugly, and the temperatures won't get out of the 50s, and we might have 2 periods of heavy rain, one Wednesday, one Friday, but the weekend's supposed to be looking good. Some news to report. Sad news in the world of professional wrestling. Former wrestler Ox Baker passed away at the age of 80 after suffering a heart attack and having the complications from a recent heart attack. Ox was mainly a heel wrestler back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. His famous move was the heart punch, and he wrestled so many territories in the United States and in Canada and in Japan. And Ox appeared in some movies, and he actually appeared as a contestant on The Price is Right in 1981. He got up on he was in contested role. He won it, and he went to play the poker game, and he won the poker game. You could see that on YouTube, and it reran on the Game Show Network a few years ago. Sad prayers to his family. And also tonight on Monday Night Football, the Pittsburgh Steelers against Houston Texans. Only one more day into the World Series between the Kansas City Royals and San Francisco Giants. And that's about it on news. Our next subject is about the classic television show Mannix. Mannix was a detective show that lasted 8 years on CBS. It ran from September 7th, 1967 to April 10th, 1975 on CBS. 8 seasons. It was created by Bruce Geller, who also created Mission Impossible. And it was the last television show produced by Desilu Productions. Desilu was Desi Arnaz and Lucy's Balls production company, and before they sold it to Paramount Pictures in 1968. And Mannix starred Mike Connors as Joe Mannix, who was of Armenian descent, and for the first season he was a detective for Intertech. It was a computerized high-tech company for the time that was a detective that specialized on criminals and stuff like that, to hunt down criminals. And co-starring for the first season of Mannix was Joseph Campanella as Lou Wickersham, his boss. And Lou would assign Mannix to a case, but Mannix had difference of opinion on that. He wanted to go for his gut, not for what a computer says, and they argued a lot, Lou and Joe Mannix, but the show was pretty good for the first season. But when Paramount Pictures bought the rights to Mannix from Desilu, they said that the show needed to be changed a little bit, because they said the high-tech computers was okay, but it was ahead of its time, and they thought Joe Mannix would be better off as an independent detective with his own group. So in the second season, it was changed that Mannix owned his own detective agency, and his assistant was Peggy Fair, played by Gail Fisher, which, by the way, Gail Fisher's character, Peggy, was the first significant role for a African-American actress in the television show that was a co-star. And for the next 7 seasons, Joe Mannix and Peggy Fair worked for pretty good, because Peggy was Joe's secretary, and they worked pretty good as cases. And some of the cases during Mannix's those years, episodes dealt with a lot of gambling addiction, and also they introduced a lot of deaf and blind characters who helped with the cases and solve it. And also they dealt with racism between African Americans and Latinos, and also later on in the series, probably around the 6th, 7th series, there was a lot of cases that dealt with Vietnam War. and the ratings for Mannix were pretty high. They were in the top 30 for about maybe 4 or 5 years of the show. Very high popular, had a great theme song. Do 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 do. Yeah, and other recurring characters on Mannix were like Lieutenant Art Malcolm, who was played by Ward Wood. Lieutenant Adam Tillips was played by Robert Reed, who was famous for being Mike Brady on the Brady Bunch. And by the way, like Mannix and the Brady Bunch were produced by Paramount Pictures Television, so he didn't have to go far. Lieutenant George Farmer as Larry, played by Larry Lidlow, and Lieutenant Dan Ames, played by Jack Jinger. And the last, and also Joe Mannix appeared in 2 shows that appeared briefly. In 1971 was Here's Lucy, like Mike Connors appeared as Joe Mannix on Here's Lucy in 1971, and in 1997 Joe Mannix reappeared on Diagnosis Murder in a cameo appearance. The series Mannix ended in 1975, and it went into syndication in like several television stations across the country, but only seasons 2 through 7 were sold in syndications. Saw the reruns a lot in Boston area on WCVV Channel 5 for so many years, and WQTV 68. Also, it was on WNDS TV 50 in New Hampshire for about 4 or 5 years in the 1980s and stuff. And all 8 seasons of Mannix is on DVD throughout the United States. And it hasn't appeared on MeTV yet, but who knows if it will appear. But most likely, if it did appear on MeTV, it probably would show seasons 2 through season 7, because season 1 and 8 was never syndicated. But who knows about that? And Mike Connors actually sued CBS in 2011. They now own like the Paramount Pictures television series CBS. He sued them because he did not get any royalties from reruns of Mannix and stuff like that. The case is still pending. But Mannix was one of the best cop shows, like detective shows of all time. There's also talk about it being revived, a reboot, but we don't need any reboots of classic television series in my opinion. And that's about it on that. And I'll be back later with my third and final video blog of the night, which will be about the personality profile Derek Sanderson, the Turk who played for the Bruins for about 9 years. And I'll tell him about his career. Don't forget, I want questions sent to me, private message, for a future video blog, which will be culminating in November or December. And don't forget, probably the first of the year, I am going to try to get maybe weekly guests on here. You never know. Have a good day, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. See you tonight.